remarks. Next, I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Vice Admiral Brad Cooper, Deputy Commander, United States Central Command. As a surface warfare officer, the Vice Admiral served on guided missile cruisers, guided missile destroyers, aircraft carriers, and amphibious assault ships. Ashore, Vice Admiral Cooper has served in a variety of executive military assistant and special assistant roles in the White House, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, U.S. Africa Command, and the U.S. Pacific Fleet Headquarters. He also served as the principal U.S. advisor to the previous Afghanistan government Minister of Interior. As a flag officer, Vice Admiral Cooper has commanded at multiple levels, including Naval Surface Force Atlantic, Expeditionary Strike Force 7 in Okinawa, and U.S. Naval Forces of Korea. Before becoming Deputy Commander of Central Command, he served as Commander, U.S. Naval Forces Central Command 5th Fleet Combined Maritime Forces, where, among other achievements, he established the Navy's first unmanned and artificial intelligence task force. Please join me in welcoming Vice Admiral Cooper.
Well, good morning, everybody. And sir, thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for that picture. It was taken a couple of years ago, and it makes me think, oh, I was young then. That's fantastic. But a real privilege to join all of you. I'd like to acknowledge General McKenzie, who was my boss, as he mentioned at the beginning of my previous tour, and most importantly, enabled us to do many of the things that I'll talk about today, putting not just the Navy, but I think, frankly, the U.S. military in a position to move faster than we would have ever imagined. I look forward to talking about a little bit what that looks like. Clearly, a privilege for me to be here this morning. This is my first trip to a USF. Since I'm a Navy football fan, I suspect it won't be my last time down here, as I think we'll swap schedules back and forth, but I'm looking forward to staying engaged with this group in particular. I believe that we're at the dawn of a new era and at the cutting edge and the leading edge of a revolution in technology with AI and unmanned vessels. We see this in practical terms every day. For those of you who are monitoring open source intelligence, you would have seen that just hours ago, Ukraine sunk another Russian ship. No tears. I know there's a lot of opinions on this, but you're seeing technology and AI, unmanned, all come together in an iterative process that is moving faster than any of us probably could have anticipated. I think in the here and now for this particular group, in the next few days, you'll be thinking about discussing and examining how AI and unmanned vessels, but particularly AI, transforms the very nature of great power competition, conflict, and in fact, international cooperation in new and meaningful ways. Of course, this technological revolution has had significant implications in not only our day-to-day lives, but it also brings with it global and strategic implications as it relates to our military forces and the allies with whom we serve alongside. As we discuss throughout this conference how to compete effectively with our adversaries, I'd like to mention that our adversaries today are not just state-sponsored militaries, they are militias and terrorist organizations who also have access to this technology, often in cases and in places that we would rather they not. New technologies such as AI and unmanned systems have changed the way that militaries provide security and deterrent to prevent war. And as we have seen, these new technologies have absolutely changed the way that militaries fight, and they could ultimately determine who prevails in a time of war. I'm going to talk to you today about how new technologies, particularly artificial intelligence and unmanned technology, are changing the ways that the United States Central Command plans and conducts operations in the central region, and how China, Russia, and Iran and others are using AI in the CENTCOM era of responsibility to compete strategically. And that is to compete with us for influence and their advantage. The Middle East, of course, has long been characterized by complex and multifaceted security challenges, ranging from asymmetric warfare, terrorism, interstate conflicts, proxy wars, and gray zone conflict. The adoption of AI technologies offers both opportunities and challenges for the United States, countries in the region, and regional actors seeking to enhance their military capabilities to maintain a strategic advantage. Just over a month ago, on January 28th, 3 U.S. soldiers were tragically killed in Jordan by a one-way attack unmanned aerial system built and manufactured by Iran and launched by an Iranian-backed and supported militia group. I stress one-way attack as these specific unmanned aerial vehicles, or as we call them in DoD, UAVs, are employed in a manner in which they are not designed to return. They are designed to kill. AI and autonomous systems, as in this example, took the lives of 3 service members and injured roughly 20 others. While recent and sobering, this is what forces abroad, and our forces in particular, contend with overseas, and how our adversaries are using new AI technology that is cheaply made and easily manufactured. I would also add, easily exported. USCENTCON has defended and intercepted hundreds of these UAVs aimed to kill our soldiers within the last few months. And so I think the obvious question is, what is it that we're doing to allow ourselves to more effectively defend and defeat these threats? So we have a little rule in the Navy. I suspect it's true in all the services. When you leave command, you are unofficially allowed to talk about that command for 60 days, because after that, no one cares about you anymore and what you did. I'm still in that 60-day window, having left Bahrain and Fifth Fleet about 30 days ago. And let me just talk a little bit about the waters in that region from a maritime perspective. So it's a broad region, very maritime centric. It's 5,000 miles from the Suez Canal all the way around the Arabian Peninsula to the North Arabian Sea. 2.5 million square miles. Just through the Red Sea alone, 15% of world trade flows. 30% of global container traffic. I think we're all very familiar with the influence of oil, PRC, and the fact that the PRC gets about half of their oil through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's a large area. And my contention is, in that large area, the United States alone, and certainly not the United States with our allies, can build enough ships to monitor that great an area. It's just not possible, nor is it pragmatic, quite frankly. But through the use of unmanned systems, artificial intelligence, newly emerging, there's great potential. And to give you some context on this, so unmanned aerial vehicles in the air have been around for 30 years, if not longer. UUVs, the undersea portion of this using AI, has been around for 10 years. But the surface technology has really only essentially matured in the commercial market in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's matured quite rapidly. As General McKenzie mentioned during our time together, he gave us authorization to stand up a new task force that focused on this problem. How, in a broad maritime region, can you leverage new technology, particularly unmanned systems, coupled with AI, to have a better sight picture of what's happening around you? Because you can't build navies big enough. In this context, we launched Task Force 59, focused on this AI and USV problem. To give you a sense of how fast it's moved, since September of 2021, this task force has participated in 34 multilateral maritime exercises, including 3 major international exercises. So to give 34 exercises, to give you some context, and this is just the unmanned group, the Chinese Navy, who is present 365 days a year, has conducted 5 total exercises in that same period of time. So rest easy, the United States Navy and our partners are quite active, and I feel good about the direction that we're going. In terms of experience, this group has gone through a very rapid iteration and an intense period of time of testing and operational fielding of new platforms. So we've accumulated about 60,000 hours of experience. That's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, for about 30 years in a 2-year period. So you can just appreciate how quickly we've been able to assemble partners, get kit, integrate AI, move forward, fail fast, move forward faster, fail fast again, keep moving forward faster, to the point where we have several dozen unmanned platforms integrated with artificial intelligence deployed throughout the region today. To give you a sense on the value of this from a cost, it's almost incomprehensible. We've had several drones with leading edge AI deployed at sea for more than 200 days. And the cost for those 200 days were the same thing that we paid in gas for a U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer. Now, you don't get the same capability, but if all you're doing out there is looking, that's a pretty nice return on investment, I would say. What's this allowed us to do in practical terms? By putting platforms out there with extra eyes on the water, integrating artificial intelligence, you're able to sift through literally 50 million pictures and watch malign activity from the Russians, from the Chinese, and from, importantly, the Iranians, whether that is through their navies or through sanctions, enforcement mechanisms, illegal oil shipments, you name it. This is what AI gives us from a cost-effective perspective. And it allows us to have a persistent presence in the waters all the way around the Arabian Peninsula. To test our current systems and similar systems, we conducted one of the largest, at the time, it was the largest unmanned exercise in the world called IMX-23, International Maritime Exercise. We brought together unmanned systems and artificial intelligence from 3 different companies from around the world. The exercise tested this as a mechanism to figure out what's actually going to work in the tough environment of the Middle East and what's not. And if it's going to work, let's keep moving it forward. If it doesn't work, we don't need to take another brief on it. We don't need to spend any more time. One scenario that we tested in the Northern Red Sea in particular got at the heart of the detection and the deterrence mission. I'll describe it here. In the Gulf of Aqaba, we placed 3 targets in the water to represent a smuggler, an illegal fishing vessel, and a swimmer. Without any human control, sensors from our unmanned units identified the targets, they took high-resolution pictures of the targets, and then using artificial intelligence, concluded that these targets were suspicious and then notified humans at the operations center. And let me just anchor there for a second. Everything that we do has a human in the loop. I think as you start to talk about the AI boogeyman, people lose fact of, at the end of the day, decisions are made by humans. It's the decision-making process that is more vibrantly enabled through AI, as in this case, that described and identified the targets capable of operating 24 hours a day. It was very effective, and it's a good example of what we're using on a day-to-day basis. I'd also mentioned that because of the endurance of these platforms, they outpace what humans can do. There's just simply no human who can stay awake for 24 hours looking at pictures, identifying, analyzing, re-identifying. It's just not possible. Then on a light note with unmanned and artificial intelligence, you also get no complaints from the crew about how long you're staying out at sea, which is kind of nice from my perspective. I'd also like to talk about what we're doing across CENTCOM in general with other teams who are clearly recognizing the power of AI to support their mission. Our sister services are looking at AI embedded in hardware to provide autonomous capability. At our Air Force component, the experiment task force called Task Force 99 is looking at how we can find and use unmanned aerial systems from non-traditional sources to increase air domain awareness and superiority. Sometimes those sources are commercial, like Task Force 59, and Task Force 99 has looked to the commercial sector where you get real rapid leading edge capability that can be fielded very quickly. That's typically dual use commercial military technology so that they can take a look at this, get it at their fingertips, give it to the operators out forward, if you will, and figure out how best to use it. This process we're finding is working very well. To design something and test it for years on end, only to find out that the operators forward can't use it to its maximum extent, certainly doesn't do us any good. The reverse is also true. Rapidly providing leading technology and giving it to men and women who have to use it and let them be part of the process of determining how well it's used is proving its use. And of course, in the case of Task Force 99, they're also thinking about this problem differently in just different ways from the air. Everything from using 3D printed UASs that airmen have determined how to employ. What they've figured out in this process by 3D printing, AI, is you can effectively generate an unmanned aerial system or UAV of our own for about $3,000, couple it with artificial intelligence, get it out there, and you have a very high ROI on domain awareness from the sky. It's very impressive. Our Army component, Task Force 39, is experimenting with theater and unmanned ground systems, UGVs. to see how and where we might be able to keep humans out of harm's way when transporting goods and equipment. Task Force 39 is also experimenting with additive and subtractive manufacturing and inventive counter-UAS technologies like smartphone apps that help civilians identify and report enemy drones. So just imagine all of you here on a smartphone app integrated with one another. You're in a country, say Ukraine, and you notice a drone in the sky. 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 of you see it. It all goes to a common source, integrates with artificial intelligence. The system then produces a, hey, this is where this weapon is, and it allows the defenders to more accurately defend against that weapon. That's not just some 2050 idea, that's happening today. And our forces forward are looking to see how we can take that technology and use it to our advantage. Our Special Operations Task Force 179 is developing digital and unmanned for ISR, target information sharing, electronic warfare, and payload delivery. For example, Task Force 179 takes advantage of U.S. Special Operations Command rapid acquisition capabilities to field disposable, swarming, unmanned systems that can be employed unilaterally or through a surrogate force. Across our components and our headquarters, teams are experimenting with AI to help identify threats, for sure. Our operations cover a large geographic space, and we collect a massive amount of data, everything from imagery to text reports to full motion video and everything in between. That data has huge potential, but unless we have a way to rapidly sift through it to find important information, that potential will remain untapped. And that's where I think AI has an important role to play, particularly for us and with a very strong military application and ultimately advantage. Teams across the command are experimenting AI today, for instance, to help find images in theater. So imagine you have a stack of 1,000 pictures, and one of those pictures shows a person or a piece of equipment that means to do you harm. And they mean to do harm in a very short order, in a very short compressed timeline. So you don't have much time to go through it, and you have an urgent deadline to produce some analysis. Without AI, here's how this would work. It would be something like this. A human would have to frantically flip through those 1,000 photos looking for that threat. In particular, could be a thread, and hoping to move quickly enough and precisely enough to find it without making a mistake. With AI, the algorithm can rapidly scan those 1,000 photos for objects that look like the threat and tell the human, I think you should focus on these 50, or maybe it's these 10, or maybe it's these 5, and perhaps it could even be this one. And then a human makes the decision of how accurate that could be. So I think just in that one example, you can just see the power of AI, how it helps the military in a number of ways. And one application of that, it's saving lives. I don't think it's a stretch to see how you could then use it for targeting and a whole other series of applications. So the things that I've talked about are just a few examples of how U.S. Central Command is using AI. And to be clear, we appreciate that much of the things that we're doing are absolutely works in progress. We have absolutely not broken the final code, but I think rather this will be a journey that we pursue with a large group of people. And I think when I say, and I think a large group of people, it's unique. It's academia. It's industry partners. It's our allies and friends. And in doing so, we're able to move at speeds that were previously unimaginable. Let me just bring you a little bit to more practical examples we're using today. For the last 4 months, I think you're all tracking the Houthis in Yemen have threatened the very pulse of our interconnected world. The whole free flow of commerce is being held at risk, and they use it by targeting ships somewhat discriminately, in fact, very discriminately. Not only do these attacks jeopardize our economic prosperity by threatening sea lines of communication, they're an affront to the fundamental principles of a rules-based international order that has nurtured our own global prosperity for about the last 80 years. At CENTCON, we've been able to use AI in the maritime domain for pattern detection in order to identify threats at a faster rate. We want to get ahead of nefarious act, and AI in a very modern, contemporary, happening today way is proving itself to be very effective. In a world where the international rules-based order is consistently being challenged by malign actors, we face a stark reality, and that is that the traditional vessels alone cannot be omnipresent. guarding every corner of the maritime domain. In the case of the Houthis in Yemen, you also incur risk that you have to balance by putting manned platforms inside of an anti-ship ballistic missile weapons envelope. So these weapons are launched at short range. They have an average duration of about 75 seconds from launch to impact. They're traveling at about Mach 5 or 5 times the speed of sound. Human beings have about 9 to 15 seconds to make a decision of whether or not we're going to shoot them. One of these events happened just a matter of hours ago with the USS Carney in the southern Red Sea engaged an anti-ship ballistic missile. What helped them do that? A confluence of sensors, people, training, and AI, allowing to sift through a large volume of information very quickly. So again, I go back to, as I mentioned at the forefront, some of these ideas, while they are in their infancy, are moving very quickly, have very pragmatic impacts today, are solving real world problems today. And so this is why I'm so excited to see this group assembled, a distinguished group of speakers. I'm certain by the end of the next couple of days, we will have walked away from this with a better sense of where we are today, what's possible, where are the appropriate applications, how can those be bounded in an ethically responsible way. And I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to speak a little bit about what we're doing from Central Command's perspective, but more broadly, allowing us to continue to serve each and every one of you. So thanks so much.